Hello everyone, my name's George Farmer and this video is all about how I re-aquascape the 60 litre aquarium. It's been modified slightly, so I've removed the hood and I've fitted this LED lamp above the aquarium, and I've just used it as a holding tank for loads of spare aquarium plants that I've gathered over the last few weeks. Just put them in the tank to keep them alive, and today's job is going to be hopefully creating a beautiful aquascape. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so my first job is going to be to remove the aquarium plants that are in there. So I'm going to separate the plants into rheophyte plants, which are plants that attach to decor, such as Anubias, which you can see there. And we have some more Anubias Nana Petite. And I'm probably going to have too many plants to use, but it's better to have too many than not enough. So most of these plants are all Dennerle plants that have been grown in previous aquascapes that I've stripped down or just trimmed, and the excess plants I've just put in this aquarium just to keep them alive, ready to set up a new aquascape. And the actual aim of this aquascape will be to hopefully create a nice breeding tank for cherry shrimp. So we've got some Hygrophila polysperma. This is a great plant for beginners, really easy to grow, very fast growing. So it's very good for helping to prevent algae, especially in new setups. There's also loads of moss. So you can see the Christmas moss here. Absolutely loads of it, which is perfect for keeping shrimp. They're going to look really tatty when you first start planting them. They're not going to look too great, but after a day or so, the plants will start growing towards the light. They'll straighten up and look a lot healthier. I think it's going to look like a bit of a jungly tank. I think the shrimp will absolutely love it. There'll be loads of room for shelter, loads of moss for them to crawl over. So I've had the lighting on for about 12 hours a day, just to keep the plants alive. I mean, they're not going to be thriving because they were just literally floating in the water, but it just stops them from drying out and dying. Okay, next job is going to be to remove my hardscape. The hardscape actually looks pretty good already, but I'm going to take it out, and that's going to make it easier to attach the plants, and I just like to start from fresh, so I'll give it a 100% water change. So I'll drain the water right down, have a play with the hardscape again, and then we'll start planting. Okay, so I've removed all of the hardscape and the plants, and I've actually moved the filter unit, which is here, from over here, and the reason for that is I'm going to be viewing the tank from way over there, that way. So when I look in, I don't want to be seeing this filter. The filter also contains the heater, so it's quite handy. I've painted the sides of the tank and the background black, and the reason for that is this aquarium is in my extension at home, and there's a lot of natural light coming in, and I just want to minimise any risk of nuisance algae. So our next stage is to install our hardscape. In this case, it's going to be dominated by this large piece of wood, and I'm going to attach various rheophyte plants, so plants that attach to wood or rocks. So I've got some Anubias, I've got some Microsorum, trident fern, I've got some Bucephalandra, and I've got some Bulbitis as well. So I can pretty much cover all of the wood. Okay, next I'm just going to add a couple more pieces of wood to the layout, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Next I'm going to add some rocks, and the reason I'm going to do that is because it helps create a bit more of an interesting natural look, but also there's going to be quite a lot of shaded area, and so rather than trying to grow plants in that shaded area, I'm just going to put the rocks there. Okay, so I've repositioned the wood a little bit, I've added some more rocks, created quite a nice hardscape layout here. You can see it's a definite kind of triangular composition, and I'm ready to start my planting. I'm going to start with the background plants and then work my way forward, and then finally I'm going to attach plants to the wood. So to start with, I've got some Hygrophila polysperma here on the right, and then some Ludwigia palustris red on the left. These are already adapted to their submersed form. These are plants that have been taken from old aquascapes, and I'm recycling them. So hopefully they're really easy plants, they're really fast growers, so they're ideal for a new setup. So we're dealing with red plants like Ludwigia palustris red. it's important to consider its impact on the whole composition of the aquascape. So red is quite a high impact plant, so we need to think about where it's going to go, and ideally we want to position it around about a third of the way along the tank. So I'm probably going to position most of it around here in the background, and then position the Hygrophila polysperma all the way over to the right. So I'll start off with a Ludwigia palustris red, and I'll get each stem at a time and then simply put it in my tweezers nice and gently so we don't damage the stems, and then we just insert it into the substrate. So I'm using Dennerle Scapers Soil. There's about 8 litres in there, which is a bag, and that's really great. It's a really great substrate for growing plants. It helps to buffer the pH about 6.5. It reduces the KH as well. It just makes the environment much healthier for the plants to grow, and really encourages root growth. It's really important to plant as dense as you can in a new aquascape. New aquascapes are really prone to algae because the aquarium hasn't reached a balance. So the more plants you put in there, the bigger chance you get of fighting off the algae. I like to think of plants and algae always in competition with each other. The more plants you have, and if you look after those plants, then hopefully you won't run into any algae problems. Okay, next we're going to plant our Hygrophila polysperma. So exactly the same method. Grab a stem, position it in between your tweezers, and then place it in the soil. You can push it in quite deep if you want to. The soil is quite loose because it's wet, so you do need to push it in a fair amount, otherwise it might float up. Okay, next I've got 3 or 4 different species here. I've got some Hygrophila compact, some Hygrophila araguayi, and a couple of different species of small cryptocoryne. So I'm just going to place that in front of the Hygrophila, and that will act as a nice transition between the foreground and the Hygrophila there. And then I'll plant the foreground with hairgrass. So the cryptocorynes will probably grow the tallest, so I'll put them in nearest the Hygrophila polysperma. Next I'm going to plant the foreground with Eliocharis pusilla. I've already pre-prepared it. It's from Dennerle in vitro plant. So I've separated each tissue culture pot into about 8 portions. And there's 3 pots altogether here, so there's about 24 portions or so. And to plant it, really simple, grab it between your tweezers again, and then push it into your soil. You can push it in quite deep, and that will just help it stay in the soil. It has very, very small root structure, very fine root structure, so you do need to push it in quite far to ensure it anchors into the soil. It's a lovely carpeting plant. It stays quite short, and hopefully it will form a solid carpet along the front of the tank. Next I want to attach some Anubias. Most of this is Anubias nana petite, like a really nice small form of Anubias, so ideal for smaller aquariums. It likes to be attached to wood or rocks, so it's called a rheophyte plant. And these are all taken from an old aquascape, so I'm recycling them. There's a little bit of algae on the leaves. It's kind of inevitable with Anubias because it's so slow growing. It does tend to attract a little bit of algae, but it doesn't look too bad. And I'm just going to pop it around the bottom there so it's shaded. It does tolerate shade, and that will ensure that hopefully it doesn't get too much algae on it. So I'm literally just going to poke the Anubias in, and hopefully it will attach itself because there's lots of room for it to attach to. So there's one nice piece there. Next I'm going to attach some Christmas moss. Again, this has been matured in an old aquascape, so it should adapt really easy to the new aquarium. I'm hoping I can just sort of poke it in the cracks down there, underneath the wood, in between the rocks, and it should hopefully self-attach. It does tolerate shade again, so that's no problem putting it in areas of low lighting. So grab a little portion, and then hopefully I could just offer it up. Just push it in gently, and that will hopefully hold it there, and then just repeat that process. Just put some over here. I think I'll put a bit here, but I'll probably need to glue that on because it won't self-attach. So this is a gel-like super glue, which makes it really good for using in aquascaping because it doesn't run too much, and you only need a tiny portion. It does turn white underwater, so it's important to hide it and not put too much on there. And then I think I'll put some on the water line where the water and the air meet. It should start growing out of the top of the tank, which will look really attractive. Okay, so our planting's now complete. Now we're ready to fill the aquarium up with water. So I'm using a red colander there. That's going to disperse the water and stop it from disturbing the soil too much, which will cause a lot of clouding. Rather than pouring the water in with buckets, I've just set up a submersible pump in a large bucket, and I'm going to pump the water in just to save my back. Okay, that's the aquascape complete. I'll follow it up with a large water change just to make sure the water clears really quickly. The filter's running, the heater's set to 20 degrees Celsius, which is perfect for cherry shrimp, which is what I'm going to be putting in here. And I will be fitting a CO2 kit as well, just to encourage plant growth. Cherry shrimp are absolutely fine with CO2 injection, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this develop. It should be fairly low maintenance. The stem plants will require quite a lot of trimming, but that's no problem. And yes, hopefully I'll see some baby shrimp fairly soon. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and keep on scaping. Cheerio.